Hello students, I am Archana. In this session, we are going to study a very beautiful poem, Two Daffodils, written by Robert Herrick. Before I'll start discussing the outline of the poem, come on, let's discuss the theme of the poem. What is this whole idea about? Life is short, world is beautiful, love is splendid, and we have to use this short time and we live to make the most of it. This is the main theme behind this beautiful poem. So, let's have a look at the pattern of this session. Just look at the board. In today's session, we will cover the introduction, and in the introduction section, we will be focusing. Our main agenda to focus on what do you mean by the term poetry, some idea about the poet. We will discuss something about the background of the poet, and then the title, the most interesting one, Two Daffodils. Then gradually we will move on to the theme. Then we will see the word study structure and questions and answer section, and then we will conclude the session. Fine. So come on, let's start the introduction. What do you mean by the term poetry? The first subheading, what do you mean by the term poetry? Poetry means imagination. It is of Greek origin. It means to create something. To create something, you need intellectuality. Okay, if you want to do something unique in your writing, you have to be imaginative. So what are the tools of writing a good poem? The first question is, so I am going to highlight what makes a poetry different from other genres of literature, and how the poet Robert Herrick had used the various literary devices so well in his poem. Fine. So, look at the board. The term symbolism. How the poet had used this literary device. First of all, you have to understand this term. It is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meaning that are different from their literal meaning. Now see, two daffodils, how this literary device is used here. Symbolism means that gives you some idea about an object, and how the poet had used such literary device by changing the literal sense of it. Here, two daffodils. Daffodil is a flower. Okay, it is in a shape of a trumpet with a long stem and yellow in color. But how this structure of a flower can be compared to the lifespan of a human being? Is that possible? No. But if a poet is using such kind of a comparison with the tool of symbolism, that is called the beauty of a symbol. That is called symbolism. हम इस तरह से जब कंपैरिजन करते हैं किसी नॉन लिविंग और लिविंग चीज का, उनके कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स को इक्वेट करते हैं, दैट comparison is known as symbolism. That's why I have written here, it is the use of symbols to signify ideas and qualities by giving them symbolic meaning that are different from their literal sense. Just take an example. A piece of broken mirror. Can you say something about this, line? A piece of broken mirror suggests separation. In the same manner, if you are talking about flower, it suggests automatically beauty. That is called symbolism. But here we will find how this flower can be related with the lifespan of a human being. Fine. In the same manner, the poet had used personification. Why I am discussing these literary devices? to make you feel comfortable while study the poem. When you are going to study this poem, these techniques will help you to analyze the core of the poem. Okay. Now, personification. The attribution of a personal nature or human characteristics to something non-human, or the representation of an abstract quality in human form. A figure intended to represent an abstract idea or quality. If you are relating the nature of a non-living thing with a living thing, that is called, you are personifying that non-living object. Okay. So that is called personification. Just suppose if you are studying a poem, okay, उसमें अचानक से बात होती है कि इसमें किसी पर्सन के नेचर के बारे में बात हो रहा है, आपको लग रहा है कि when we are talking about a flower, it is relating to someone's nature of a female or male. So here it is giving you an idea about personification, because an abstract idea, you know, it reflects an abstract idea. So this is called personification. Later we will discuss in the poem how these devices, you know, were used in the stanzas. Fine. Now, here look at the board. 2 daffodils. What does this title suggest? 2 daffodils. It deals with the perishable nature of daffodils, which ultimately suggests the transitory existence of all human beings. It deals with the perishable nature. Perishable nature means to decay, the decaying nature of, the fast decaying nature of a flower. Okay, of what flower? Daffodils, which ultimately suggests, what it ultimately suggests? The transitory existence of all human beings. Transitory means that does not exist for long. So that is called daffodils. So you have the complete structure here. What kind of a figure of speech the poet had used, and what do you mean by this term? 2 daffodils. If you want to understand this poem, you need to understand the title of the poem, because it will, you know, give you an idea that what is the main theme behind this philosophy. So we can say that Robert Herrick, born in the year 1591 and died in the year 1674, was a well-known poet of the 17th century, and his poems have the sense of simplicity, lucidity and brevity. Why I had used these lines while speaking these words? Because he had used so simple words to express his feelings. He had used the exact words, you know, to imply an idea. So that's why I had used 3 adjectives at a time: simplicity, lucidity and brevity. So you have to keep these points in your mind when we will going to analyze the whole poem. Okay. So Robert Herrick was that kind of a poet who used simple words and he who used such kind of a brevity in his poems, because he wanted to convey the exact idea by using the exact word. That's why he had, you know, chosen this beautiful word daffodils, this beautiful flower, to compare with the lifespan of a human being, how they both decay very soon. Okay. So we had discussed the introduction part, and now we will going to learn what is there in the poem. So come on, let's begin the next section, that is the theme of the poem.